All right. Well, this is another segment I'm going to do today. It's a little rushed and not as thorough as I'd like it to be, but I had things I had to do today, and I still have things I have to do today, and I wanted to dedicate some time to this stuff because we've had like two incredibly significant and historical things happen today. Number one, we've had Finland that has joined NATO. I already did a segment about that. It's pretty short and try to get to the point. Finland joined NATO, obviously pissing off Russia. Here's the other historic thing that's happening right now. Trump's been arrested, although by now you've probably heard about that. So yeah, I'm going to use this article from Timcast News. I like Timcast better than most other sources, and it's free, which is a nice feature because, well, I have limited resources of my own, and I like to do this as a hobby. So it's not really something I can justify spending that much money over. So subscriptions, other things, but free articles here, and they're of decent quality, so I prefer to use this one. The framing is a bit more or less, or the framing is better than most other places, so I prefer this source. Anyhow, let's go ahead and get into it. The title: Breaking. Former President Donald Trump has been arrested. Written by Cassandra McDonald. All right, and here's the story. Trump was officially arrested upon entering the Manhattan courthouse and surrendering to authorities just after 1:30 p.m. on Tuesday. Heading to Lower Manhattan, the courthouse seems so surreal. Wow, they're going to arrest me. Can't believe this is happening in America. MAGA. Trump wrote on Truth Social minutes before the arrest. Trump's motorcade arrived at the courthouse at 1:24 p.m., and Trump waved to crowds of protesters who had gathered to support him. All right, we got some tweets from his supporters. All right, moving on. The indictment stems from Trump allegedly falsifying business records concerning a $130,000 payment to Daniels in 2016 over an alleged sexual encounter the two had in 2006. Trump has denied sexual contact with the porn star and that the payments violated the law. All right, so here's the basic gist of it in case you didn't know what was happening. The whole thing is over whether or not Trump actually paid off a porn star who he may or may not have had relations with. Like, none of this is really like a huge concern for me. Like, we've had presidents who've done worse. I mean, Bill Clinton for one. I'm pretty sure he might have even used the like campaign money to pay off this hooker or something. But maybe I'm just not getting that right in my head. I haven't really checked that, but so take that with a grain of salt, I guess. Anyhow, $130,000. I believe the basic story was that a lawyer who was working for Trump's campaign was the one who paid off Daniels during the election. Trump never. There's question marks over whether Trump even knew this was happening, and then there's question marks over whether or not it even happened. All right, continue with the story. The indictment is sealed, but on the eve of the arrest, information leaked to Yahoo News that he was charged with 34 felony counts for falsifying business records. Trump's former attorney, Michael Cohen, pleaded guilty to the charges over the payment in 2018 and was sentenced to 3 years in prison. In July 2019, federal prosecutors determined that no additional people would be charged alongside Cohen v. Manhattan District Attorney charged along Cohen. Need a copy editor, Timcast. There's a period, and they have a V, and then they start the next sentence. Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg took the unusual step of reviving the case to bring charges against the former president, which many Republican politicians and commentators have deemed a political persecution. Man, I need to take a sip of water. I keep stuttering. All right. Rep. Marjorie Taylor Greene spoke at the protest outside the courthouse, which the New York Young Republican Club organized. She asserted that Trump would be acquitted of the charges. This administration is a failure. They have nothing to campaign on, so they've decided to arrest President Trump, who is innocent, on the word of a porn star and a felon, Greene said. This is such a failure, and this will not stand. So yeah, that's Marjorie Taylor Greene. She's speaking in front of a crowd. I don't really need to play the video. We kind of get the idea of what she said. She's a big Trump person, so she's obviously angry about this. All right, continue with Greene's quote. President Trump will be found innocent. This witch hunt will end. We will not tolerate it. We will not tolerate the hate of the left, Greene said. God bless America. God bless President Trump. God bless MAGA. The former president's arraignment is scheduled for 2:15 p.m. It is unclear if he will have to take a mugshot. Court officials will create a record of his name, age, birth date, height, and weight before taking his fingerprints via a computerized system. They may take his photo, ABC News reports. The process is not expected to take very long, and Trump is scheduled to speak at 8:15 p.m. at his Mar-a-Lago estate in Florida. The former president remains the front-runner for the 2024 Republican primary. Yeah, he's the front-runner at this point. I'm not sure if I had said this in a previous video. I haven't been quite as regular making these segments as I'd like to, but yeah, so here's the basic deal. This whole indictment thing has basically made Trump front and center in the Republican Party. Like, he's essentially the martyr figure within it, whether you like that or not. For a while, DeSantis was like close behind him and like egging for that top spot in the Republican primary, but at this point, it's all Trump. And I believe DeSantis could have done better in his response to this whole situation. I mean, think about it. DeSantis only came out and said that he wasn't going to be supporting the federal government in trying to extradite Trump. He basically rinsed his hands of it and had nothing to do with it. I guess it's kind of like a Pontius Pilate move, where basically he's like, not my problem, doing nothing. And that's kind of what cost him, because here's my opinion. I think Ron DeSantis is so popular within the Republican Party is because that he's displayed a lot more strength than most other GOP politicians. Like, when it comes to some of these like things that the GOP have been doing lately that have been like garnering a lot of attention, at least in terms on the state level, Ron DeSantis is the guy who initiates it. He starts it, and then maybe you'll see like Texas follow up on it. But Florida's been at front and center of this whole thing, and Ron DeSantis has been able to take credit for it. But on this issue, where it really matters for the Republican Party, he comes out and says that basically he's not going to he's just gonna stand by, and that's a weak response. I mean, look, it's better than him saying, look, I'm going to help the federal government go and arrest Trump. And it's not even the federal government. It's the New York state that would have to go and that they would have to file extradition, and he could choose whether or not to cooperate. Look, here's the reality. If Ron DeSantis wanted to maintain a strong image, he'd basically say, if Trump says that he doesn't want to go, I will use the full weight and power of my office as governor of Florida to prevent federal law enforcement or state law enforcement from New York from being able to extradite him upon any sort of criminal charges. That would be strong. I mean, he could probably word it better than I could, but that's just the reality, is that he decided he was going to like stand down and do nothing, and his polls have been tanking quite a bit lately. I don't have those pulled up right now. I probably should have if I was going to talk about it this long, but yeah, that might have just right now. It might have just cost him the entire primary. And at this point, like, if he decides to throw his hat in the ring and run, I think it'd be a mistake, because at this point it's been proven that Trump is the strongest guy in the field, whether you like that or not. DeSantis now has weakness on his record. It's like he did good with the COVID stuff because he opened up a lot earlier. He made pretty big headways when it came to the what is the bill called? The don't say gay bill. It doesn't. It's not its real name, I know, but it's more complicated than that. It's a lot more nuanced, and it's completely taken out of context by Democrats. Is what it does. It just keeps you from being able to talk about sexualized topics to children in public schools as a teacher, which is fine if you ask me. But yeah, so he was good on COVID. He was good at sending immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, which garnered him a lot of popularity. And then when it came down to this, he flinched, and that could have just cost him the primary right there. I'd say that he had a running shot before this. After this, I think he's got some leaks in his ship. It might be a better option for him to accept that this is failure, and that he should just wait until after Trump runs again. But strike while the iron's hot. It may never get better than this. So let's move on. Here's a poll that I wanted to talk about from New York Post. 3/4 say Trump indictment political, but most still approve. So yeah, here's the crazy thing. The majority of Americans, think about this, the majority of Americans are saying that indicting Trump is political. There are political motivations behind it. It doesn't mean that they think that it's totally just political. But they do think that there is a political element to it in which there are political motivation. Now, also think about this. The majority still approve. So think about it this way. 3/4 are saying that it's political, and then over 50% are saying it's a good thing. So what does that mean? That basically means, like, well, let's say we split America evenly into Democrats, Independents, and Republicans. And I know it doesn't break down that cleanly, but let's just pretend it's an even third for everyone. Let's say all the Democrats approve of this, and let's say all or half of the, or a little bit more than half of the Independents approve of this. Well, what you wind up getting is that you get 51% of people say that are approving of this thing. But then across the board, you have to reconcile the fact that you have plenty of Democrats, most of the Independents, most of the Republicans, all saying this is totally political. This is in no way reasonable or perfectly following the law. And so that's reality. I mean, let me break it down in simpler terms. I mean, it kind of feels like you have both political factions looking at each other and are basically just saying, I hate you, and I don't care. I will do whatever it takes to keep you from getting power. Or at least you have the Democrats who are doing that right now, and then the Republicans will probably want to try to return the favor sooner or later. Then you have the cycle of tit for tat, and then, well, things keep getting unstable. But, in case you didn't know or couldn't guess, Trump pleads not guilty after arrest, arraignment, and hush money case. And that's pretty much what everyone kind of figured. I mean, why would he plead guilty in this case? I mean, if he did, it's like certainly not any worse than Bill Clinton. I mean, there is one image where you have like Trump's like he's taking a picture with Jeffrey Epstein, but you also have the whole deal where Trump also banned Epstein from his resorts after Epstein got handsy with his staff. So I mean, there are some questions there about Trump's conduct in relation to Epstein that I think merit some sort of investigation, or people should at least look into, because I don't know, man, I would be concerned about that. But here's the deal, though. It doesn't really matter so much right now because we know that Bill Clinton was definitely on that island doing horrible things to underage people. So the Trump's like, well, maybe he's a bad guy. Well, Bill Clinton's definitely a bad guy, right? I don't know. Anyhow, that's about all that I really had for today, for this segment at least. Yeah, that's gonna pretty much wrap things up. I'm gonna have to pack up and head out of here. I got places to be. I gotta go spend some time with my family, and that's kind of nice. Thanks for listening this far. If you made it, this is just my hobby channel. I'd like to do it just because I don't have enough opportunities in the day to talk about my obsession with these kind of topics. I'd like to read about them. I like to know what's going on. I try to remain informed. Maybe you're someone out there who's kind of like me and just generally wants to be aware of what's going on in the world, and if so, then good for you. And for this goes for everyone. I encourage everyone to just go ahead and read as many sources as they can. Follow the news. Try to avoid trusting any one single source. Definitely get multiple, and stay informed about what's going on. It's my personal concern that there is a rough future ahead of us. I mean, when you look at things that are going on with like all the banks that were collapsing recently, and that chaos could still continue to unfold. You have Trump getting indicted, so essentially the U.S., the world superpower, is starting to crumble internally. The political mechanisms are starting to target itself, and then you have the destabilizing situation in Ukraine, where essentially what you have is you have Finland that just joined NATO, and then Sweden is probably going to wind up joining in the next couple of months after Turkey has its elections. So, yeah, everything seems to be pointing towards escalation. It seems to be the theme of how politics goes these days, whether that's like foreign policy or domestic policy. Escalation is the general theme. Things only seem to get worse and a little bit more crazy. I don't know. I hope to make it. I hope we all get to see another day where it's politics is just boring. People just complain about tax policy. Wouldn't that be nice? Instead, we're wondering about whether or not the U.S. will fall into a civil war, whether we'll have World War III, or whether or not we're going to have a Great Depression, or whether all three of those things will hit us all at once. Each is possible. Anyhow, thanks for listening this long. Stay safe. Bye.